Welcome back. Welcome back, road trippers. Welcome back, kingdom builders. Welcome back to the road trip. That's right, Mishpachah. Akim and Akatim. That's right, brothers and sisters, mothers, fathers, aunties and uncles, grandmas and grandpas. Everybody, shalom, shalom, peace and blessings to you, your homes, your dwelling places, your children, your loved ones, your friends, and your pets. Welcome back. All praises to the Most High. All praises to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Glory to Yahweh Shai. Honors to the Ruach HaKodesh. My love and my respect to you. Welcome back to the road trip, everybody. All right, so where we at? Well, we're still here in the additions to Esther. This is from the Greek translation of the Septuagint. And we're going to be back here in chapter 5. There's only 10 chapters in this one, so I was thinking that we'll probably just put all these together as one. I don't know, because that might be kind of long, but we'll see how it goes. We've done it before. I mean, we can do it again. How do y'all feel about that? What do you think? Hope everyone's doing well today, having a great afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time this is that you're picking it up. Hope you're doing well and that you're at peace, right? And that you are comfortable, all right? If you want to follow along with me, right now is a great chance to get your scrolls out. If not, no problem. Just sit back and I'll do the best that I can for you. And we won't take too long here. No further ado, Esther, the Greek translation from the Septuagint, chapter 5. Let us begin. Let's begin. Let's go.
All right. They come back.
All right. 5. And it reads, It came to pass on the third day, when she had ceased praying, that she took off her servant's dress and put on her glorious apparel. Being splendidly dressed and having called upon the Most High, the overseer and preserver of all things, she took her 2 maids, and she leaned upon one as a delicate female, and the other followed bearing her train. She was blooming in the perfection of her beauty. Her face was cheerful and looked lovely, but her heart was filled with fear. Having passed through all the doors, she stood before the king. He was sitting on his royal throne. He had put on all his glorious apparel, covered all over with gold and precious stones, and was very terrifying. And having raised his face, resplendent with glory, he looked with intense anger. The queen fell and changed her color as she fainted. She bowed herself upon the head of the maid who went before her, but Yahweh changed the ruach of the king to gentleness, and an intense feeling he sprang from off his throne and took her into his arms until she recovered. He comforted her with peaceful words and said unto her, What is the matter, Esther? I am your relative. Cheer up. You shall not die, for our command is openly declared to you. Draw near. And having raised the golden scepter, he laid it upon her neck and embraced her. He said, Speak to me. So she said to him, I saw you, my Adon, as the angel of the Most High, and my heart was troubled for fear of your glory. For you, my Adon, are to be wondered at, and your face is full of grace. While she was speaking, she fainted and fell. Then the king was troubled, and all his servants comforted her. The king said, What do you desire, Esther? What is your request? Ask even to the half of my kingdom, and it shall be yours. Esther said, Today is a special day, so if it seem good to the king, let both him and Haman come to the feast which I will prepare this day. And the king said, Hurry and bring Haman here, that we may do as Esther said. So they both came to the feast about which Esther had spoken. At the banquet the king said to Esther, What is your request, my Esther? My queen, Esther? You shall have all that you require, she said. My request and my petition is, if I have found favor in the king's sight, let the king and Haman come again tomorrow to the feast which I shall prepare for them, and tomorrow I will do as I have done today. So Haman went out from the king very glad and merry. But when Haman saw Mordecai, the Jew, in the court, he was greatly enraged. Having gone into his own house, he called his friends and his wife Zeresh. He showed them his wealth and the glory with which the king had invested him, and how he had promoted him to be chief ruler in the kingdom. Haman said, The queen has called no one to the feast with the king but me, and I am invited tomorrow. But these things don't please me while I see Mordecai the Jew in the court. Then Zeresh his wife and his friend said to him, Let the 50-cubit tall gallows be made for you. Let it be made for you. In the morning you speak to the king and let Mordecai be hanged on the gallows. But you go into the feast with the king and be merry. The saying pleased Haman, and the gallows were prepared. Wow. Crookedness. That's the end of chapter 5, all right? But guess what? That's foreshadowing. Pay attention to that, right? Right? His wife, Zeresh, told him to go ahead and prepare a gallows to hang Mordecai, and you go into the feast. Remember those words, okay, Mishpachah? Remember those words. That's going to come back, okay? All right. That's the end of chapter 5. Let's continue and get some more of this. Chapter 6. Let's continue. All right. Chapter 6, and it reads, And the Most High removed sleep from the king that night, so he told his servant to bring in the books, the registers of daily events, to read to him. And he found the records written concerning Mordecai, how he had told the king about the king's 2 chamberlains, when they were keeping guard, and sought to lay hands on Ahasuerus. The king said, What honor or favor have we done for Mordecai? The king's servant said, You haven't done anything for him. And while the king was inquiring about the kindness of Mordecai, behold, Haman was in the court. The king said, Who is this? Who is in the court? Now Haman had come in to speak to the king about hanging Mordecai on the gallows which he had prepared. The king's servant said, Behold, Haman stands in the court. And the king said, Call him. The king said to Haman, What should I do for the man whom I wish to honor? Haman said within himself, Whom would the king honor but myself? He was thinking about him, right? He said to the king, As for the man whom the king wishes to honor, let the king's servants bring the robe of fine linen which the king puts on, and the horse on which the king rides, and let him give it to one of the king's noble friends, and let him dress the man whom the king loves. Let him mount him on the horse, and proclaim through the streets of the city, saying, This is what will be done for every man whom the king honors. Then the king said to Haman, You have spoken well. Do so for Mordecai the Jew, who waits in the palace, and let not a word of what you have spoken be neglected. So Haman took the robe and the horse, dressed Mordecai, mounted him on the horse, and went through the streets of the city, proclaiming, This is what will be done for every man whom the king wishes to honor. Then Mordecai returned to the palace, but Haman went home mourning, with his head covered. Look at that. It came back and bit him, right? Haman related the events that had happened to him to Zeresh, his wife, and to his friends. His friends and his wife said to him, If Mordecai is of the race of the Jews, and you have begun to be humbled before him, you will assuredly fall, and you will not be able to withstand him, for the living Elohiah is with him. While they were still speaking, the chamberlains arrived to rush Haman to the banquet which Esther had prepared. And that's the end of chapter 6. All right, that's 6. All right, we'll continue and read 7. 7's not very long. It's pretty short. All right, you ready? All right, you ready? So 7's not that long. All right, it's pretty short. So this is what it reads. 7, and it reads, So the king of Haman went in to drink with the queen. The king said to Esther at the banquet on the second day, What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? What is your petition? It shall be done for you up to half of my kingdom. She answered and said, If I have found favor in the sight of my king, let my life be granted as my petition and my people as my request. For both I and my people are sold for destruction, pillage, and genocide. If both we and our children were sold for male and female slaves, I would not have bothered you, for this isn't worthy of the king's palace. And the king said, Who has dared to do this thing? Esther said, The enemy is Haman, this wicked man. And Haman was terrified in the presence of the king and the queen. The king rose up from the banquet to go into the garden. Haman began to beg the queen for mercy, for he saw that he was in serious trouble. The king returned from the garden, and Haman had fallen upon the couch, begging the queen for mercy. The king said, Will you even assault my wife in my house? And when Haman heard it, he changed countenance. And Bugathan, one of the chamberlains, said to the king, Behold, Haman has also prepared a gallows for Mordecai, who spoke concerning the king, and a 50-cubit high gallows has been set up on Haman's property. The king said, Let him be hanged on it. So Haman was hanged on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the wrath of the king's wrath was abated. See? See how that boomerang slung right back at Haman? See what I'm saying? Like I was saying, remember that. That was foreshadowing. Right? He prepared a gallows to hang Mordecai, and then he was hoping for the blessings, the horse, and the robes of the king. Then Mordecai got the robes and the honor of the king and the horse, and he got hung on the gallows that he had prepared for his enemy. And that's foreshadowing, right? That's foreshadowing or a shadow of things to come with 83 and Yasharel. That they hope for the destruction of Yasharel, setting traps and booby traps and trying to jam Nagas up all the time. You know what I mean? And what's going to happen is that Uno reverse card is going to come back and it's going to slingshot right back on them. And it's going to be their demise and their destruction and their little traps and pits and, little snares that they try to set all over the place, right? No weapon formed against you will prosper. It won't work. You know what I mean? So anyway, we're going to continue on and get chapter 8, all right? Let's continue on. Let's begin. All right. Let's continue. Chapter 8, and it reads, On that day, King Ahasuerus gave to Esther all that belonged to Haman, the slanderer. The slanderer. Yeah. The king called Mordecai, for Esther had told that he was related to her. The king took the ring which he had taken away from Haman and gave it to Mordecai. Esther appointed Mordecai over all that had been Haman's. She spoke yet again to the king and fell at his feet and implored him to undo Haman's mischief and all that he had done against the Jews, right? No more murder, no more genocide. Then the king extended the golden scepter to Esther, and Esther arose and stand near the king. Esther said, If it seems good to you, and I have found favor in your sight, let an order be sent that the letters sent by Haman may be reversed, letters that were written for the destruction of the Jews who are in your kingdom. For how could I see the affliction of my people, and how could I survive the destruction of my kindred? Then the king said to Esther, If I have given and freely granted you all that was Haman's, and hanged him on the gallows because he laid his hands upon the Jews, what more do you seek? Write in my name whatever seems good to you, and seal it with my ring. For whatever is written in the command of the king, and sealed with my ring, cannot be countermanded. So the scribes were called in on the first month, which is Nisan, on the 23rd day of the same year, and orders were written to the Jews, whatever the king had commanded to the local governors, the chiefs of the local governors from India, even to Ethiopia, 127 local governors, according to the several provinces in their own languages. They were written by order of the king, sealed with the ring, and the letters were sent by the couriers. In them, he charged them to use their own laws in every city to help each other, and to treat their adversaries and those who attacked them as they pleased. On one day in all the kingdom of Ahasuerus, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is Adar, let the copies be posted in conspicuous places throughout the kingdom. Let all the Jews be ready against this day to fight against their enemies. The following is a copy of the letter containing orders. The great king Ahasuerus sends greetings to all the rulers of provinces in 127 local governances regions, from India to Ethiopia, even to those who are faithful to our interest. Many who have been frequently honored by the most abundant kindness of their benefactors have conceived ambitious designs, and not only endeavor to hurt our subjects, but moreover, not being able to bear prosperity, they also endeavor to plot against their own benefactors. They not only would utterly abolish gratitude from among men, but also elated by their boastings of men who are strangers to all that is good. They supposed that they would escape the sin-hating vengeance of their ever-seeing Elohiah. And oftentimes evil exhortation has made partakers of the guilt of shedding innocent blood, and has involved in irremediable calamities many of those who had been appointed to officers of authority, who had been entrusted with the management of the friends' affairs, while men, by the false sophistry of an evil disposition, have deceived the simple goodwill of the ruling powers. And it is possible to see this not so much from more ancient traditional accounts, as it is immediately in your power to see it by examining what things have been wickedly perpetrated by the baseness of men unworthily holding power. It is right to take heed with regard to the future, that we may maintain the government in undistributed peace, for all men adopting needful changes, and ever judging those cases which come under our notice with truly equitable decisions. For whereas Haman, a Macedonian, the son of Hamadatha, in reality an alien from the blood of the Persians, and differing wildly from our mild course of government, having been hospitably entertained by us, obtained so large a share of our universal kindness as to be called our father, and to continue the person next to the royal throne. Reverenced of all, he, however, overcome by pride, endeavored to deprive us of our dominion and our life, having by various and subtle artifices demanded for destruction both Mordecai, our deliverer and perpetual benefactor, and Esther, the blameless consort of our kingdom, along with their whole nation. For by these methods he thought, having surprised us in a defenseless state, to transfer the dominion of the Persians to the Macedonians. But we have that the Jews, who have been consigned to destruction by the most abominable of men, are not malefactors, but living according to the most just laws, and being the Son of the Most High, living Elohiah, the Most High and Mighty, who maintains the kingdom to us as well as to our forefathers in the most excellent order. You will therefore do well in refusing to obey the letter sent by Haman, the son of Hamadatha, because he who has done these things has been hanged with his whole family at the gates of Susa. The Almighty El Shaddai Yahweh, having swiftly returned to him a worthy punishment. We enjoin you then, having openly published a copy of this letter in every place, to give the Jews permission to use their own lawful customs and to strengthen them, that on the 13th of the 12th month Adar, on the selfsame day, they may defend themselves against those who attack them in a time of affliction. For in that place of the destruction of the chosen race, the Almighty El Shaddai Yahweh has granted them this time of gladness. Therefore, you also among your notable feats must keep a distinct day with all festivity, that both now and hereafter it may be a day of deliverance to us, and who are well disposed towards the Persians, but to those that plotted against us a memorial of destruction. And every city and province collectively, which shall not do accordingly, shall be consumed with vengeance by spear and fire. It shall be made not only inaccessible to men, but most hateful to wild beasts and birds forever. Let the copies be posted in conspicuous places throughout the kingdom, and let all the Jews, the Yahudim, be ready against this day, to fight against their enemies. So the horsemen went forth with haste to perform the king's commands. The ordinance was also published in Susa. Mordecai went out robed in royal apparel, wearing a golden crown and a diadem of fine purple linen. The people of Susa saw it and rejoiced. The Yahudim had light and gladness. In every city and province where the ordinance was published, wherever the proclamation took place, the Yahudim had joy and gladness, feasting and mirth. Many of the Gentiles were circumcised and became Yahudim for fear of the Yahudim. Right? That's the end of chapter 8. Hallelujah. All right. And we only got, what? We only got chapter 9 and chapter 10 left? Yeah. And chapter 10's not long at all. So chapter 9 is going to be the longest part of this, all right? I guess we'll go ahead and get chapter 9 now. You ready? Keep your scrolls out, all right? Chapter 9, and it reads, Now in the 12th month, on the 13th day of the month, which is Adar, the letters written by the king arrived. In that day the adversaries of the Jews, the Yahudim, perished, for no one resisted through fear of them. For the chiefs of the local governors and the princes of the royal scribes honored the Jews, for the fear of Mordecai was upon them. For the order of the king was in force, that he should be celebrated in all the kingdom. In the city, Susa, the Jews killed 500 men, including Pharsanes, Delphon, Phasca, Faradatha, Barea, Sarbaka, Marmasema, Ruphias, Arsaeus, and Zabutheus, the 10 sons of Haman, and the son of Hamadatha, the Buzian, the enemy of the Yahudim, and they plundered their property on that same day. The number of those who perished in Susa was reported to the king. Then the king said to Esther, The Jews, the Yahudim, have slain 500 men in the city Susa. What do you think they have done in the rest of the country? What more do you ask, that it may be done for you? Esther said to the king, Let it be granted to the Yahudim to do the same to them tomorrow. Also hang the bodies of the 10 sons of Haman. He permitted it to be done. And he gave up to the Yahudim of the city the bodies of the sons of Haman to hang. The Yahudim assembled in Susa on the 14th day of Adar, and killed 300 men, but plundered no property. The rest of the Yahudim The rest of the Yahudim who were in the kingdom assembled and helped one another and obtained rest from their enemies. For they destroyed 15,000 of them on the 13th day of Adar, but took no spoil. They rested on the 14th of the same month, and kept it as a day of rest with joy and gladness. The Jews in the city of Susa assembled also on the 14th day and rested, and they also observed the 15th with joy and gladness. On this account, then, the Jews dispersed in every foreign land keep the 14th of Adar as a Kodesh day with joy, each sending gifts of food to his neighbor. Mordecai wrote these things in a book and sent them to the Jews, as many as were in the kingdom of Ahasuerus, both those who were near and those who were far away, to establish these as joyful days and to keep the 14th and the 15th of Adar. For on these days the Jews obtained rest from their enemies, and in that month, which was Adar, in which a change was made for them from mourning to joy, from sorrow to holiday, to spend the whole of it in good days of feasting and gladness, sending portions to their friends and to the poor. And the Jews consented to this as Mordecai wrote to them, showing how Haman the son of Hammedatha the Macedonian fought against them, how he made a decree and cast lots to destroy them utterly. Also how he went in to the king, telling him to hang Mordecai, but all the calamities he tried to bring upon the Jews came upon himself, and he was hanged along with his children. Therefore these days were called Purim, because of the lots. For in the language they are called Purim, because of the words of this letter, and because of all they suffered on this account, and all that happened to him. Mordecai established it, and the Jews took upon themselves, upon their offerings, and upon those who were joined to them, to observe it. Neither would they on any account behave differently, but these days were to be memorial kept in every generation, city, family, and province. These days of Purim shall be kept forever, and their memorial shall not fail in any generation. Queen Esther, the daughter of Aminadab, and Mordecai the Jew wrote all that they had done, and gave the confirmation of the letter about Purim. Mordecai and Esther, the queen, established this decision on their own, pledging their own well-being to the plan. And Esther established it by a command forever, and it was written for a memorial. That's the end of chapter 9. And we're going to finish this last little bit up, chapter 10, and we're going to close out this Greek Septuagint version of the book of Esther, okay? Ready? Let's see here. All right, one more to go, fam. Bear with me, Mishpachah. All right, Kingdom Builders, Road Trippers. Chapter 10, to the door, to the gate, right? And it reads, The king levied a tax upon the kingdom, both by land and sea. As for his strength and valor, and the wealth of glory of his kingdom, behold, they are written in the book of the Persians and Medes for a memorial. Mordecai was viceroy to King Ahasuerus, and was a great man in the kingdom, honored by the Yahudim, and lived his life loved by all his nation. Mordecai said, These things have come from Yahweh, for I remember the dream which I had concerning these matters, for not one detail of them has failed. There was the little spring which became a river, and there was light, and the sun, and much water. The river is Esther, whom the king married and made queen. The two serpents are Haman and me. The nations are those who combine to destroy the name of the Yahudim. But as for my nation, this is Yasharel, even those who cried to Yahweh and were delivered. For the Most High Elohim delivered his people. The Most High rescued us out of all these calamities, and Yahweh worked such signs and great wonders as have not been done among the nations. Therefore he ordained 2 lots, one for the people of Yahweh and one for all the other nations. And these 2 lots came for an appointed season and for a day of judgment before Yahweh and for all the nations. Yahweh remembered his people and vindicated his inheritance. They shall observe these days in the month Adar, on the 14th and on the 15th day of the month, with an assembly, joy and gladness before Yahweh throughout the generations forever among his people Yasharel. In the 4th year of the reign of Ptolemaeus and Cleopatra, Dositheus, who said he was a priest and Levite, and Ptolemaeus his son brought this letter of Purim, which they said was authentic, and the Lysimachus, the son of Ptolemaeus, who was in Jerusalem, had interpreted. And that is the end of the book of Esther, the additions to Esther translated from the Greek Septuagint. All right, and that's the end of that. So when we get back started again, I don't know. I think we might go up ahead and get Psalms 151. I don't know. We'll take a look and we'll see. You'll know when I know. All right. But thanks for riding along with me. I know this was a little short one. There was only 2 of them. There was only 10 chapters. I mean, what can I do? All right. So anyway, thanks for riding along. Please be safe out there in everything that you do, all your endeavors. Right. Put the Most High first. Take care of those children. Love everybody. Shalom, shalom. Peace and blessings to your home, your dwelling places where you stay at, right? Children and your pets, little fur babies. All right, I'll see y'all soon. All praises to the Most High. All praises to Yahweh. Always. I love you. Yeah.